Welcome to my channel. In this video we will talk about the Irish Nitazene epidemic that has so far taken many lives. We will also talk about how the UK and Europe are suffering the same problem. The HSE's National Drug Treatment Centre has found that Nitazene, a potent form of synthetic opioid, is in the counterfeit benzodiazepine tablets. If you take these tablets, you're going to die, warns mother, whose daughter, 25, died after consuming counterfeit pills, Ireland. Benzodiazepines are a type of sedative medication. The centre has urged people to be extremely cautious. It stated, "Analysis by the Emerging Trends Laboratory at the HSE National Drug Treatment Centre has confirmed Nitazene in yellow, round, counterfeit benzodiazepine tablets associated with these overdoses." The HSE advises that there is extra risk at this time and strongly recommends people not to take these tablets. Miss Casey recalled the terrible moment last Thursday night when she realised her daughter was dying. "Learn more," she said. Carly had previously been in rehab. She was out about 8 weeks and she was doing really well. But today a shadow hangs over the Emerald Isle, a darkness seeping into the very veins of its people. I'm talking about Nitazene, a deadly opioid silently ravaging communities and leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. What starts with a hope for escape, a moment of oblivion, ends in tragedy for countless Irish families. This is a story of addiction, of despair, of a system struggling to cope with a foe more potent and more insidious than anything it has encountered before. It began subtly in the streets of Dublin, Cork, Limerick and many more Irish counties. Some new players in the drug game have received drugs which I sure hope they don't know what they have received. But the Nitazene problem has laced into heroin, benzos, and now even synthetic weed known as spice, almost undetectable, unbelievably potent. 1. Rumoured to be between 50 and 100 times stronger than fentanyl, overdoses skyrocketed. Emergency rooms overflowed. The sirens wailed a mournful tune in the night. His name is irrelevant, his crimes well documented. In 2009, he walked into a crowded Dublin pub and opened fire. He was cold, calculating, devoid of remorse. Now he's just another victim of this insidious drug. Nitazene doesn't care about your past or crimes. It's an equal opportunity destroyer. There's nothing high about it. This is the reality on the streets of Ireland. Spice, marketed as a cheap alternative to cannabis, has become a vessel for Nitazene, reaching a younger demographic. These are kids, teenagers, experimenting, searching for a good time. But the good time quickly turns sour. Overdoses on spice laced with Nitazene, benzos and heroin are becoming common. The symptoms are terrifying: seizures, respiratory failure, death, and the authorities seem powerless to stop it. Overdoses in Ireland. Every day families are torn apart, lives shattered. The lucky ones survive, often with life-altering injuries. The unlucky ones, they become another number in a growing statistic. It's easy to dismiss this as someone else's problem, something that happens in the shadows, far removed from our own lives. But the reality is, this crisis affects everyone. It affects our communities, our healthcare system, our sense of safety and security. And it's not just Ireland. The UK is also seeing a worrying rise in Nitazene-related overdoses. This isn't just an Irish problem, it's a global problem, and it demands a global response. What makes Nitazene so dangerous, so deadly, is its potency. It takes just a tiny amount, a grain the size of a salt crystal, to be lethal. Chapter 5. Nitazene's potency. Imagine for a moment trying to measure out a grain of salt, and then imagine that grain having the power to end a life. That's the reality of Nitazene. It's being mixed with heroin, with spice, with anything that can be smoked, injected or ingested. The effects are swift and merciless. 1 minute you're feeling a sense of euphoria, the next you're struggling to breathe, your body shutting down. But why? Why is this happening? The answer, in part, lies thousands of miles away in the poppy fields of Afghanistan. You see, when the Taliban seized control of Afghanistan in 2021, one of their first acts was to destroy the country's opium crops. Afghanistan, as you may know, was the source of the vast majority of the world's heroin. Impact of Taliban's actions. The Taliban's intentions, at least on the surface, seemed noble to eradicate the drug trade, but the law of unintended consequences is a harsh mistress. With the supply of heroin from Afghanistan severely disrupted, a gap opened up in the market, a gap that was quickly filled by synthetic opioids like Nitazene. These synthetic opioids are cheaper to produce, easier to smuggle, and far more potent than traditional heroin. For drug dealers, it was a no-brainer. They could make a quick profit with less risk, and the demand was higher than ever. But here's the truly insidious part. This new wave of synthetic heroin often looks and tastes identical to the real thing. Even experienced users can't tell the difference. And because it's so potent, dealers are cutting it with other substances, increasing their profits even further, while at the same time increasing the risk to the user. It's a deadly game of cat and mouse, and the stakes have never been higher. The Internet, specifically the dark web, has become a breeding ground for this illicit trade. Drug dealers operating with impunity can now order large quantities of synthetic heroin from countries like China with next-day delivery. It's as easy as ordering a pizza, and the authorities are struggling to keep up. The traditional methods of tackling the drug trade, raids, seizures, arrests, are proving ineffective against this new breed of online dealers. We're facing a crisis, a pandemic, not dissimilar to the fentanyl crisis that has ravaged North America. In America, Canada and Mexico, fentanyl, another synthetic opioid, has claimed hundreds of thousands of lives. It's a stark warning, a glimpse into a potential future that we must do everything in our power to avoid. The situation in Ireland, in the UK, is a stark reminder that we are not immune to the global drug trade. It's a reminder that the choices we make, the policies we implement, have real-world consequences. We need to be vigilant. We need to be informed. We need to be proactive. This isn't someone else's problem, it's everyone's problem. We need to educate our young people about the dangers of drugs, about the risks of synthetic opioids like Nitazene. We need to provide support for those struggling with addiction. We need to invest in research and treatment, and we need to hold those who profit from this misery accountable. The fight against Nitazene, against all synthetic opioids, is a fight for our communities, for our families, for our future. It's a fight we cannot afford to lose. Nitazenes were first developed in the 1950s as a pain-killing medication, but are so potent and addictive they have never been approved for medical or therapeutic use. In recent years, they have been linked to thousands of deaths in the United States. In 2019, it was reported that, unknown to users, they were being cut and spliced into heroin, cocaine and street pills. Injected, inhaled or swallowed, mixing them with other drugs and alcohol is extremely dangerous and significantly increases the risk of overdose and death. The Public Health Agency, PHA, in Northern Ireland, said this category of new synthetic opioids has varying levels of potency that can have damaging effects to the body. It added that most fatal overdoses involve the use of more than one type of drug, and any combination of prescription drugs, over-the-counter drugs, illicit drugs and alcohol can be dangerous. Mixing different types of drugs is unpredictable, can increase the toxicity of already potentially harmful substances, and increases the risk of serious harm. Earlier this year, public health warnings were issued in relation to Nitazene abuse in parts of Scotland and the Midlands in England after a sharp rise in drug overdoses and deaths. Presentational Grey Line Group Director of Therapeutic and Wellbeing Services at Inspire in Belfast, Alex Bunting, told BBC News. NI news of the 6 deaths is further confirmation that a global synthetic drugs crisis has reached Northern Ireland. Mr Bunting said this will add to an already significant substance abuse problem. We need earlier and more rapid testing, he said. We also need more funding for our mental health and substance abuse strategy. Game changer? Gary McMichael, Chief Executive of the charity Assert, which offers alcohol and drug addiction support services across Northern Ireland, believes Nitazenes are a game changer in terms of the risk of serious harm, overdose and death. People are taking them, not realizing just how significantly stronger they are than other drugs. And in many cases they don't actually know what they're taking or what it's going to do to them, because they're wrapped into pills or into heroin or other powders. Gary McMichael emphasised the importance of moving quickly with a strategy. Mr McMichael said all agencies need to move quickly to prevent further tragedies. We know what's coming down the line at us, so this is the time to get a strategy in place, he said. Now they have unfortunately arrived in Europe, UK and Ireland with many lives lost and many overdoses in prisons in Ireland and Europe, including a young man who died in Mountjoy prison after his death. All the prisoners handed up the pills to prison officers. Rest in peace. Also, the Irish have had 12 men rushed to hospital over overdoses. Garda believe over an opioid synthetic, with 1 inmate still in ICU. Rest in peace to everybody who has sadly passed away, and condolence to your families. I hope this video brings awareness to the Irish, especially vulnerable kids, and also the UK. Let's just hope the government can get this drug off the street quick. We don't want to see another fentanyl epidemic, especially that is stronger. My country has been ruined by these drugs, and the Canadians and Mexicans. If you would like more content, please comment, like and share. Thank you.